Silverbrook was a quiet village surrounded by tall hills and rolling green fields. It was a peaceful place where people lived simple lives, growing crops, taking care of animals, and helping one another. The village was filled with clear streams and tall trees, and at the center, a strong river ran through, its waters singing as they moved. At the end of the river, a busy market appeared every week, where villagers traded goods and met travelers. In a small house at the edge of Silverbrook, two sisters lived together. Their names were Era and Anwen. Era, the older sister, had long golden hair that shone in the sunlight like a field of wheat. Her eyes were a bright, sparkling blue that made everyone smile when they looked at her. She was well known in Silverbrook for her beauty, but more than that, she was loved by everyone because she was kind and always willing to help. Era worked hard every day, whether it was helping with the garden or picking apples in the orchard. She was graceful and always had a friendly word for anyone she met. People admired her for being so polite and friendly. Her laughter was like music, and her smile could light up the darkest days. Anwen, the younger sister, was different. She was quieter and more mysterious. Anwen's hair was dark brown, almost black, and her eyes were a deep shade of green, like the leaves in the forest during summer. She did not talk much, but there was something calm about her, something that made people want to listen when she did speak. Anwen was known as the village healer. She knew everything about plants, herbs, and flowers that could cure illness. People came to her when they needed help, and she always knew just what to do. Even though Anwen did not speak as much as her sister, the people of Silverbrook loved her just as much. She had a quiet beauty that was different from Era's. Anwen's calmness made her special, and whenever someone needed advice or help, they would turn to her. She had a way of making people feel better with just a gentle touch or a soft word. The two sisters were very close. Though they were different in many ways, they shared a bond that could not be broken. They lived with their parents in a home filled with love and laughter. Their parents, both hardworking and kind, taught them how to respect others and how to live a good life. One morning, the sun was shining bright and the air was fresh. The sound of birds singing filled the village as Ira and Anwen worked in their garden. Era was kneeling on the soft earth, pulling weeds from the flower beds. She hummed a cheerful tune as she worked. Her golden hair caught the sunlight, making it shine even brighter. Anwen, sitting beside her sister, was carefully picking herbs from the ground. She knew just which plants could heal and which ones were poisonous. Her hands moved slowly but sure, picking leaves and flowers with great care. Though she did not say much, her presence was calming, and the villagers respected her for her wisdom. The sisters were so caught up in their work that they didn't notice the new man who had arrived in Silverbrook. Roland, a young merchant, had moved into the village not long before. He was tall, with sharp features and dark, curly hair. Roland had come to Silverbrook to sell goods at the market, but he wasn't just interested in trading. He had heard about the two beautiful sisters and was curious to meet them. When Roland first saw Era, he was taken aback by her beauty. Her warm smile and graceful movements made him feel drawn to her. But as he watched her from a distance, he also noticed Anwen, sitting quietly and carefully picking herbs. There was something about her that intrigued him. Her calmness was unlike anything he had ever seen. Roland decided to introduce himself to the sisters. He went to the market the next day, buying goods from the villagers and showing off his wealth. He was charming and well-spoken, always polite and eager to please. He wanted to win the favor of the sisters, so he brought gifts, flowers, fine cloth, and delicious treats from far-off lands. Era, with her kind heart, accepted the gifts graciously. She smiled at Roland and thanked him for his kindness. She did not want to hurt his feelings, but she wasn't particularly interested in him. She enjoyed talking to him, but her mind was always focused on helping the village, not on finding a rich husband. Anwen, on the other hand, barely spoke to Roland. She accepted his gifts too, but with a soft smile and a quiet thank you. She was more interested in the herbs she had gathered and the work she had ahead of her. She appreciated the gifts, but did not want them to distract her from her purpose. Roland, seeing that Era was kind and welcoming, but not interested in him, turned his attention more toward Anwen. He thought that maybe she would be easier to impress, that maybe she would like his gifts more. But Anwen did not seem to care for his wealth. She only cared about helping the sick and the needy, and she had no interest in luxury or fine things. While Roland was trying to win the attention of the sisters, another man in the village, Gareth, was also watching Era. Gareth was the blacksmith in Silverbrook. He was strong, with broad shoulders and a hard-working attitude. He had always admired Era from afar, but never knew how to talk to her. He was shy, and the idea of speaking to her made his heart race. Gareth had known Era since they were children. They had played together in the fields and helped their families with chores. Over time, Gareth had grown fond of Era, but he wasn't sure if she felt the same way. He watched from the sidelines as Roland brought gifts to the sisters, wishing he could do something to catch Era's attention. At the same time, Roland was trying to impress Anwen with his gifts. Gareth was quietly helping the villagers in other ways. He worked hard at the forge, creating tools and fixing broken items. He was humble, and didn't boast about his work. He knew that his strength and skill would speak for themselves in time. But for now, both men were caught in a gentle competition, though neither of them understood the full depth of the bond between the sisters. Era and Anwen had their own lives to live, and neither was in a hurry to find love. They were focused on helping the village and living simple, peaceful lives. The days passed, and Roland continued to visit the market in Silverbrook. He couldn't stop thinking about the sisters, particularly Anwen. Her calmness and quiet beauty had caught his attention, but something about Era's warm smile and graceful manner kept pulling him back. He found himself drawn to both of them, unsure of which sister he should focus on. Roland started bringing more gifts to the sisters. For Era, he brought beautiful ribbons for her hair, sparkling stones, and scented candles. He admired her golden hair and her bright smile, and he wanted to show her how much he appreciated her kindness. For Anwen, he brought herbs from distant lands, some of them rare and exotic. He thought she might appreciate them for her work as a healer. Era, as always, accepted the gifts with a gracious smile. She was polite, thanking Roland and expressing her appreciation. She could tell that Roland wanted something more from her, but she didn't quite understand what it was. She was used to being admired by the men in the village, but her heart was focused on helping others, not on finding a husband. She had no interest in Roland's wealth. She preferred the simple joys of village life and the friendships she had with her neighbors. Anwen, however, responded differently. She took the gifts quietly, her green eyes meeting Roland's only briefly. She was not unkind, but she was not eager to accept the attention Roland seemed to want to give her. She was focused on her work, always gathering herbs, making remedies, and helping the sick. The more Roland brought her gifts, the more she withdrew into herself. She wasn't interested in the luxury of the things he offered her, and she certainly didn't want to be swayed by his wealth. Despite her lack of interest, Roland persisted. He began to visit the sisters more often, always hoping that one day they would notice him and appreciate what he had to offer. He brought better gifts, more impressive presents, trying to win their affection. But Era remained kind but distant, while Anwen's silence seemed to be growing stronger. One day, Roland arrived at the market with a large bundle of silk cloth. He knew it was a beautiful fabric, something that any woman would cherish. He thought it might make Anwen smile, but when he presented it to her, she simply nodded, thanked him softly, and returned to her herbs. Gareth, who had been watching Roland's every move, couldn't help but feel frustrated. Gareth had always been shy around Era, unsure of how to speak to her beyond simple greetings. But watching Roland bring more and more gifts to the sisters made him feel as though he needed to do something. He wasn't sure what he could offer Ira that would catch her attention. He didn't have the wealth that Roland had, nor did he have the confidence to sweep her off her feet with fancy presents. But what he did have was his skill as a blacksmith, and he decided to use it. One day, Gareth spent the entire afternoon in his forge, working carefully on a special gift for Aira. He crafted a beautiful necklace made of silver and small stones he had collected from the river. It was simple but elegant, and he hoped it would show Ira how much he cared. He didn't have much, but he could offer his work, his time, and his heart. When Gareth finished the necklace, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He wasn't sure how Aira would react, but he knew he had to try. With his heart racing, he went to Aira's house that evening, holding the necklace carefully in his hands. Aira was sitting in the garden, working with flowers, as usual. Her golden hair shone in the fading sunlight, and she looked as peaceful as ever. Gareth hesitated for a moment, then walked up to her. He cleared his throat nervously, and Aira looked up, her bright blue eyes meeting his. "Gareth?" she said with a warm smile. "What brings you here today?" Gareth took a deep breath and held out the necklace. "I made this for you," he said quietly, feeling the weight of the moment. "I thought you might like it." Aira's smile grew brighter when she saw the necklace. It was simple, but it had a certain charm. She gently took it from Gareth's hands and admired it. "It's beautiful," she said. "Thank you so much." Her kindness made Gareth's heart flutter. She wasn't just saying it to be polite. She truly appreciated the gift. Aira carefully placed the necklace around her neck, and it sparkled in the light, making her even more beautiful. Gareth felt a wave of happiness, even if he wasn't sure if Aira saw him as more than a friend. "Do you like it?" he asked, his voice soft. "I love it," Aira replied. "Thank you, Gareth. You're very talented." Her words made him feel proud, and his heart swelled with warmth. He didn't expect her to fall in love with him right away, but he felt a small hope rising within him. Maybe, just maybe, she saw him as more than a friend. As Aira and Gareth talked, Roland walked past the garden, his sharp eyes noticing the necklace around Aira's neck. A flash of jealousy crossed his face, but he quickly hid it behind a smile. He knew he had to try harder if he wanted Aira to notice him. Meanwhile, Anwen had been watching the whole scene from a distance. She didn't speak much, but she had noticed how Gareth had worked so hard to make something for Aira. Anwen's quiet heart felt a strange warmth at the sight of the simple but meaningful gesture. She didn't need fancy gifts or grand gestures like Roland's. She appreciated sincerity and kindness, but she remained silent, as always, choosing not to interfere with the choices of her sister. Era and Gareth had a special connection, and Anwen could see that their friendship was growing deeper. As the days passed, the small tensions in Silverbrook began to grow. Roland could not shake the feeling that Anwen was not interested in him, and his frustration started to show. He would spend more time in the village, bringing even more gifts, and trying to make Anwen see that he was the right choice for her. But Anwen remained uninterested, focused on her work with the herbs and the village's people. Gareth, on the other hand, began to feel more and more hopeful. The necklace had been a small step, but it had meant something to Era. He began to help her with tasks around the blacksmith shop, trying to get closer to her. He was still shy, but he felt comfortable around her. The more they worked together, the more he began to realize that his feelings for Era were more than just admiration. He cared for her deeply. The villagers, who had long admired the beauty and kindness of the two sisters, began to gossip more about the men vying for their attention. Some whispered that Roland had money and could offer the sisters a life of luxury, while others believed that Gareth, with his hard work and quiet strength, was a better match for the sisters' hearts. Era, unaware of the growing tension, continued to live her life in the same peaceful way. She loved her work and enjoyed the company of her sister and her friends. She had always been the center of attention in Silverbrook, but she had never let it go to her head. Anwen, as always, remained distant from the gossip. She focused on her work with the herbs and the sick, doing what she loved and finding joy in the simple things. She wasn't interested in the attention of the men around her. She knew that she didn't need any grand gestures to be happy. But the quiet tension in the village was starting to build, and soon it would erupt in a way that none of them expected. One morning, the village of Silverbrook was shaken by an unexpected event. A strange illness began to spread among the villagers. At first, it was just a few people who felt unwell, but soon more and more people began to show symptoms. They complained of fever, chills, and fatigue, and some even found it difficult to breathe. The villagers didn't know what to do, as no one had ever seen anything like it before. The village doctor, a kind old man named Amos, tried his best to treat the sick, but even his skills were not enough. The illness spread quickly, and fear began to grow in Silverbrook. Families were worried, and many stayed home, not wanting to risk catching the disease. The market was quieter than usual, and a heavy sadness filled the air. It was then that Anwen stepped forward. She had been watching the illness closely, noting the symptoms and the way it affected the villagers. While most people were panicking, Anwen remained calm. She knew that the right herbs and remedies could help, but she needed time and a steady hand. Anwen gathered her herbs and began to prepare medicines. She worked tirelessly day and night, mixing the right plants and remedies, making sure to help as many people as she could. Her calm demeanor and knowledge of plants made her the perfect person to handle the crisis. People began to trust her, and soon they were bringing their sick loved ones to her home for treatment. Roland, who had been watching Anwen from a distance, saw how much the villagers needed her. He had always admired her beauty, but now he was truly impressed by her strength and determination. He began to spend more time near her house, watching as she worked. He realized that Anwen was not only beautiful, but incredibly intelligent and skilled. She didn't need gifts or grand gestures. She had something far more valuable, her knowledge and her compassion. Roland decided to offer his help, though he didn't know if Anwen would accept it. He went to her home one evening and knocked on her door. Anwen opened it slowly, her green eyes calm but wary. She didn't speak at first, but Roland stepped forward and spoke. "Anwen," he began, "I know that you're doing everything you can to help the villagers, and I admire you for it. But I want to offer you something in return. I can provide you with supplies, money, or anything you need to continue your work. Please, let me help." Anwen didn't say anything at first. She thought about his offer, weighing it carefully. She appreciated his words, but she wasn't sure if she wanted to accept help in the form of money or supplies. She was independent and preferred to rely on her own abilities. "Thank you, Roland," Anwen said softly, her voice calm but firm. "But I don't need money. I don't need gifts. What I need is time and patience. I'll do this myself. I'll help the village in my own way." Roland nodded, though he was disappointed. He had hoped that his wealth would make Anwen see him differently, but instead of arguing or insisting, he chose to respect her wishes. Meanwhile, Gareth, though not as skilled in medicine as Anwen, was also doing his part. He helped by forging tools and making sure the villagers had what they needed to care for the sick. His quiet strength was noticed by Era, who had started spending more time with him, helping with some of the tasks in the blacksmith shop. Though Era had always been kind to Gareth, she had never seen him in a romantic light before. But as she watched him work hard and help the village, she began to see him differently. There was something about Gareth's sincerity that warmed her heart. She admired how dedicated he was, not just to his work, but to the people around him. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was simply doing what was right. Gareth, in turn, appreciated Era's kindness and hard work. The more time they spent together, the more he realized that there was more to their relationship than just friendship. He didn't know how to express his feelings yet, but he hoped that one day Era would see him for who he truly was. As the illness slowly began to fade, thanks to Anwen's tireless efforts, the village began to recover. People started to feel better, and the fear that had gripped Silverbrook began to loosen. But though the worst was over, the tensions between the men continued to grow. Now, from this point, the story will be continued in the next part.